Hi everyone, Elsie Jensen here. Today we are going to make some spam fried rice with teriyaki pork meatballs and kind of some veggies in there as well. We're doing kind of an earlier dinner today because we've got a doubleheader basketball in a little bit. So we want to get some food in and then we'll probably do some late night uh, ice cream. So let's get our panade working for our meatballs. We have 2 pounds of ground pork, so we're going to use 2 slices of bread here. And then we are going to soak them with some heavy cream, just enough to make them soggy, but we don't want them drenched. And this is going to make essentially the binder for our meatballs. So I'm just going to kind of move them around, soak up them cream, enough to get them nice and soggy. But again, I don't want them drenched because if you put too much liquid in, then your meatballs won't bind as well together. We're also going to add in 2 eggs, 1 for each pound of ground pork. So we've got 1 and 2. And then we're going to chop up some herbs here to add in there. We've got some fresh parsley that we're going to chop up and add into our panade. So we'll get these kind of minced up. And then we're going to add in some red onions diced up for it. Green onions would be perfect, but we're out of green onions today. So red onions will work well since they're just going to get a minor cook on them. So we don't necessarily need to use a yellow onion on it. So let's get our parsley chopped up here. So we've got our parsley. I'm going to add this over into the base of our panade as well. And then I'm going to get my red onion here. We don't need a whole lot of red onion, so I'm just going to cut off a section of it. And then we're just going to remove kind of this whole top layer so that we just have like a good part of the red onion left. There we go. Yep, I'm going to actually move up a little bit more there. You don't want to have that top layer of skin even after you peel off that like crinkly layer. It can be a bit chewy sometimes and doesn't always cook up. So I always just like to take off those first 2 layers. I'm going to mince this fairly fine because we're going to be throwing this into our meatballs. Give it a nice little onion flavor as well. So I made a lot of thin slices, and now we're just going to go back over, and then I'll go over a couple of times with my blade to just make sure I have a nice mince on it. Because I don't want anything too big. You know, you don't want any really big chunks in your meatballs. So we'll go over, and then we're going to add this. This is going to be, it looks like maybe a 1/3 cup of minced up red onions. I'm going to add them. Okay. And then we are going to add in some onion powder. You're going to want about a 1/2 tablespoon. So a couple good shakes. This is going to give it a really nice savory flavor. And then we're going to add in some ginger paste. About a teaspoon of ginger paste, which is just kind of a nice little squeeze. If you're going to use dried ginger, you're going to want to use maybe a 1/2 teaspoon. Dried ginger is a bit more spicy and not quite as strong. I've got some sesame oil right here. I'm going to use about, you want to say 1.5 teaspoons of sesame oil. That will give it a lovely kind of that nutty flavor. And then we have some soy sauce. We're going to put in about 1.5 teaspoons of soy sauce as well. And then last, we have some garlic salt. We want about 1 teaspoon of garlic salt. So a couple of good shakes. And this is going to be for slightly over 2 pounds of ground pork. So now I'm going to go in here with my hands and we're going to just really mush this herby paste together. And then we're going to mix this into our ground pork to make our meatballs. You want to really mix this because this is going to be the binder that's really mixed throughout the entire ground pork that will nice and flavor it up. So we're going to have a nice, well-seasoned panade. There we go. And I'm just going to smush it until all of that bread that we had soaked in that milk is just turned complete mush. You know, that's going to be the binder. And this is going to give you a much better end product than using breadcrumbs. Breadcrumbs like to really dry out our meatballs, I find. So now we're going to add this in to our ground pork. Again, I have just over 2 pounds of ground pork. I'm just going to get all of that in there. But what I like to use when I'm making the panade is about 1 egg and 1 slice of bread per each pound of meat. And now we're going to go through and we're going to take the panade mixture, which is our egg, bread, and cream mixture with all of our spices. And we're going to mix it through our ground pork until it's all completely combined, making sure that delicious flavors get all throughout our meatballs. There we go. And the more you work it, the more it will start to come together and kind of form a singular, like, big blob of meat paste. There we go. And then once we have a really good, that we can tell that we've got all of our herbs and everything mixed in, that's when we can start forming our meatballs. There we go. So I've got these all shaped or mixed together. Now we're just going to shape them. And I'm just going to do kind of a rough roll on it. It doesn't need to be perfect. You know, the meat will stick to you a little bit, but as long as you kind of do a gentle roll, you'll get a nice ball form. I'm going for the size of about golf balls. They will shrink up some and then, you know, sweat out a little bit. But I want a good size meatball in there because it will be nice and tender and juicy in the middle. And it's a lot less work to roll up slightly bigger meatballs than it is smaller ones. Here we go. But these nice, like, seasonings that we added in, like the soy sauce, the sesame oil, the ginger, will all play really well into our fried rice that we're going to be making. We're going to do a Spam fried rice, which, if you've never had Spam, it's actually quite delicious. I had it for the first time, I was like in 2020, and we were getting these little like snack boxes from different countries, and one was from Hawaii. So yes, I know that's not a different country, but that was what was featured. And they had a recipe for Spam fried rice. And so I tried it, and it quickly became one of our favorite meals. It was just so good. And I'd never had it before that, and I love it. I actually think I might bring some on our camping trip because I think that will actually make for some good breakfasts. To fry it up there, maybe make a Spam hash brown, like hash. I think that would be good. So there we go. We're going to get these all rolled out. I do have my oven set to 425 on the air fryer setting. That will just cook these up nice and quick. You can also use the convection bake at 425 for the same, you know, results. That will allow these to kind of cook up pretty quickly. And we'll get these out. So just about done with making up our meatballs here. I think we're going to probably end up with around 20 or so meatballs, maybe a couple more. And this, again, we use 2 pounds of ground pork for this. And you can use chicken or turkey, but ground beef probably is not going to be a good option because the flavors just don't lend itself to the kind of that nice teriyaki flavor. So if you didn't want to use ground pork, I would opt for a ground chicken or a ground turkey. But I will say, pork makes the inside's just lovely. I always think of like the fried pork dumplings. This is kind of that similar flavor profile in the middle. Let's get a few more. Let's see. And then I'm going to steal from a couple big ones so I can make one more with the stuff that I have in mine. There we go. Okay, I'm gonna give my hands a quick rinse. Okay, we are going to pop these in the oven so they can start cooking. And then we're going to work on our Spam fried rice. So I have my air fryer setting set at 425. So this will kind of cook it up nice and hot. I'm going to put it on my middle rack so that it doesn't get quite as much direct heat from the top. And I'm going to set it for about 15 minutes. I'm hoping our Spam fried rice will be ready by then. But let's get cooking. I'm going to turn on my stove here, let it start to heat up, and then I'm going to add in some oil. We've got a big pot here, so about 2 tablespoons of oil will do well. And we are going to, where's my little onion? We're going to chop up 1 little yellow onion, and we're going to let it start to kind of caramelize and get nice and tender. We'll peel off this whole outer layer. It's not want to come, did not make my, there we go. Okay. And then I'm going to make these, kind of slice it up fairly small. Not as small as what was in the meatball, but just like a nice smaller dice. Here. And then we'll add this into our oil to let it start to kind of saute up. We're going to cook our onions up first because I really want those lovely flavors to come out with the onions. And once you start kind of adding in other stuff, looks like we got some parsley and red onion in there as well, but not a big deal. Give this a little stir around. And then we're going to give a quick peel on our carrots here, and then we're going to chop them up as well to add in there. We want to do these next because these are firmer, and when you kind of go into what vegetables you're sauteing up in there, you want to go with the firmer ones first, and then we'll add in our Spam after these ones, because after this we have kind of more softer veggies. So we're going to give our carrots a quick peel. And this way it's like so they were washed and everything like that, but unless you scrub them really, really hard, they're not going to have like a super smooth skin. So I always peel them, kind of gets rid of that kind of more woody outside texture of them and leaves the more tender middle. And we're going to just do some nice thin slices. I don't want anything too thick because I do want it to cook up relatively fast. And if your carrots are one of the slow cookers, and if you make them too thick, then they'll stay crunchier versus like a tender crisp. So we're just going to do some nice thin slices. And then we'll add these into with our onions. There we go. So once our onions start to get a caramelization, we're going to add them. Give this, and again, a nice little stir. And let's prep up our Spam. So even has Lilo and Stitch on it. This is, I was talking about, like they have, apparently they eat a lot of Spam in Hawaii, but I was thinking about making something like that over our camping trip. I had something, think about it, we'll try. So Spam is pre-cooked already, so you kind of don't have to worry about that. It's salty meat, I will tell you that, but it goes really well with the fried rice because of that saltiness. As unappetizing as it may look, it's quite delicious. So I'm going to start by cutting it up nice and kind of thin. And I will say, don't knock it until you try it. It's like, it was one of those things where I probably had some of the same thoughts, like, ew, who eats some Spam, meat in a can? And then we tried it because it was one of those things we're like, yeah, sure, why not? And it's actually really good. surprisingly. So there we go. And this is the one my kids absolutely love. I love this meal. Teddy, whenever I make spam fried rice, all he wants is like the spam chunks. There we go. And then we'll get our next ones kind of diced up. And yeah, I like to do them nice and small so that they crisp up. But of course, you could always do them thicker. But I like them to get a nice kind of crispy edge on them. And we'll just dice it up. But actually, once you dice it up, it kind of looks more like cubed ham. Okay. Now that our onions are starting to get a little bit translucent, I'm going to throw, you can see some of them popping up in the air. I'm going to throw in our carrots. There we go. And let those start kind of cooking up. Okay. We'll let those cook for a little bit before we add in our Spam. Again, Spam is already pre-cooked, so you don't have to worry about like cross-contamination or anything like that since it's already a cooked up meat. Let me grab, what are we going to do next? Let's do some broccoli. We're going to dice up some broccoli to add into our kind of fried rice. I'm kind of doing like a veggie melody in there. I don't need a whole lot of broccoli, but we're going to add in some of it. So I'm just going to cut off and really just use the floret part and do some just smaller chops on it. That way it will get nice and tender quickly in there. There we go. And I find, so before, I used to cook my Spam fried rice and then I would have my like sauteed veggies on the side. My kids never ate the sauteed veggies. Well, then I decided that I was going to add them into the fried rice one time. And ever since I did that, they'll all eat the veggies in there. So now that's my way of making sure they get eaten. And you don't need a whole lot of the veggies because you don't want it, again, to be overpowering. You still want that rice to kind of be the show. So we've got our broccoli chopped up. And now we're going to add in our Spam. Get all of this. And then we're going to chop up some mushrooms as well. And a little bit of cabbage. Kind of give you that almost that egg roll filling for it as well. And then I'm going to add in a bit of butter. With, you've got like the fried rice. I use a little bit of the olive oil. We're going to put in 2 tablespoons of butter so that when it goes into the rice later, you'll get that nice kind of buttery flavor to it. Oh, there we go. I'm going to turn it down a smidge. And this will help give you a nice little crisp crust on that Spam, which adds a great flavor. Okay. We're going to let those cook up. I'm going to grab some mushrooms here. I'm going to slice these guys up. Again, I'm not going to do too many of them because I still want the rice to be the show, and this is kind of a lighter dinner for us. We ate lunch not too long ago, but we've got to get in before we go to we have such a weird basketball schedule today. We have a game at 6:30 and then a game at 8:30, so we'll have a little bit between games, which I said let's go run and get some ice cream during that time, and that can be the second part of our dinner tonight. Because by the time we get home in the evening, it will be after 9:30. It'll be just too late for dinner then. Okay. Let's add in our mushrooms and our broccoli to our veggie mixture, or to our Spam, carrots, and onions. I'm gonna let those start to kind of cook up. I'm gonna turn it up a little bit higher now so we can get a good crisp on it now that we have more in here. I'll lay it all out flat. We'll flip that over. And then we're gonna just cut up just a little teeny tiny bit of cabbage. I love cabbage and I think it tastes so good in Asian cuisine. So we're gonna add a little bit into our fried rice, kind of give you that egg roll, you know, kind of feeling. But a little bit of cabbage goes a long way. We're just going to do a smidge. I'm going to do it nice and thin. And I'll cut it one more. Okay. We'll add that in just a second. Got it steaming up nicely here. We're going to throw in our cabbage, and this is going to be kind of the vegetable base for our fried rice. So think about it, it's more than just a fried rice. It's got Spam in it, and then it's got our little veggies here. So it kind of gives you a little bit of both worlds, you know, a stir fry and a fried rice on top of that. Okay. We're going to season it with a little bit of our Japanese barbecue sauce. I love this, guys. So good. So put it on. I just had to get a new one. They actually make a whole bunch of different like flavored ones, but my favorite is just the OG, the original one. But it's like a sweetened teriyaki sauce or soy sauce. So we're going to just give a squeeze in there, flavor up these veggies. That was about, I want to say, a tablespoon and a half. There's a lot of veggies in here. We're going to put some more in when we add our rice, but I don't want my veggies to get soggy, so I just did about a tablespoon and a half for a pretty good amount of veggies and Spam and whatnot here. Okay. We're going to let those sizzle up, and we're going to prep, because you can't have fried rice without eggs. So I'm going to scramble up my eggs over here. And my kids love a lot of eggs in their fried rice. It's actually funny. So whenever we go out to this Japanese steakhouse, the kids my stepdad always asks for an extra egg to be added to the fried rice for the kids. I'll put my shells in here. So we're going to use, 7 eggs? If I counted correctly.
7.
I got it today. Woo! And then we're going to give them a quick mix. It's easier to mix your eggs up and put them in here than it is to try to scramble them in the pan.
Can you substitute the Spam, and if so, with what?
Yes, you could. First of all, you could keep it completely out and not use it at all. You could use pork belly or thick cut bacon. Works really well with it. Those are both really good options that play on that saltiness of Spam. I used to never make my fried rice with Spam in it, and then I tried it, and we absolutely love it. But you can definitely take it out and use, I would say, bacon, pork belly, work really well with it. Otherwise, outside of that, I would just omit it completely. There we go. Now, for my egg part, I just move all my vegetables to one side. And then I'm going to go get some more butter, and we're going to add some butter so that the eggs don't stick that much to the pan. They're going to stick a little bit, but if I add a good amount of butter, they won't stick as much. I'm going to turn mine down to about a 5 now, because I don't want it too hot or they'll burn. Put it on there. There we go. And that will actually pick up some of that barbecue sauce that's stuck on the bottom of the pan. So we're going to put this right in here. And then we're going to just scramble it up. And so that will pick up a lot of times when you're frying there, that soy sauce will get stuck on your bottom of your pan, but that when we scramble it, it'll flavor those eggs up. We're just going to do half of it like this, and then we'll scramble them, and then we'll mix the eggs together. I find if you try to put the eggs just in the whole mixture, it just doesn't work well. So I just scramble on one half, and then we'll stir. Once they're scrambled, we'll stir it up. You see, like you're already deglazing that bottom of that pan there. There we go. We'll give them a nice, they're starting to set. We'll let them steam for a second there. I'm going to turn it down. Our meatballs should be nice and ready. So I'm going to go grab those out real quick. Beautiful. So I'm going to give them a touch, see if they're nice and ready, but they look like they are ready. Let me pull them out. Yep, nice and firm. That's how you know when your meatballs are ready, is if they're firm to touch, they'll be nice and ready. If they're still got a squish, then they need to cook longer. There we go. But don't overcook your meatballs because then they get dried out. So I always kind of err on having less time and then add a little bit more. There we go. But those are delicious pork teriyaki meatballs that we made using ground pork. We made a panade out of bread, cream, egg. Then we added diced up red onion, parsley, onion powder, soy sauce, sesame oil, and ginger to flavor it up well. Okay, now that our eggs are nice and sauteed, I'm going to mix everything together. And beautiful. This is going to be the lovely base to our fried rice. So we've got this part. I'm going to turn it up because I don't want too much steam to get in there. I'd rather have it heat off and cook off fast versus get steamy and soggy. Now the trick with fried rice, not fried ice. I'd love to see you try to fry ice. Is to use either. I love this sticky rice that is pre-cooked, or use rice that is a day old. But freshly cooked rice leaves you a mushy fried rice. I find this stuff is really great. I just take it out like an hour. It stays in the freezer, but an hour before I'm ready to use it, so that it is soft. And then I'm going to add it right into our mix here, and we'll mix it up. But it is so good because it doesn't get mushy. It stays crispy when you fry it up. And it's just also the best rice ever. It's better than any rice I cook at home. You can get it in like the freezer section of your grocery store. Like Gift Change makes a version of it, and then there's this Innovation one, but love it. It makes it, I will say, it's a game changer when doing fried rice. I used to always make fried rice. We'd have like salmon and rice with a beurre blanc sauce. And then the next day I would do Spam fried rice, and I'd always make extra white rice when we did the salmon. And, but this turns out so much better. Now we'll add some more of our Japanese barbecue sauce to this in just a second, but I want to first mix it up and get all of like the big rice clumps broken down. There we go. Give it a good stir around. And really get those vegetables mixed up into it because they're all been seasoned up well. There we go. One thing that's also nice about this is it's a one-pot meal. You know what I mean? We have our pan that we baked our meatballs on, but the fried rice in and of itself is just one pan. Because you could take it apart and do them all in different pans and then add them together. But it's just easy to do it in one big pan. So I love this. Is like my 6-quart saute pan. And it's got that nice lip, which is great for making fried rice, especially for a large family. Okay. Now that we've got this, and also keep your stove on high when you're doing this. I've got mine on about a 6.5 to a 7, so like a medium high. You don't want it to get steamy and soggy. You want that steam to come off and to crisp up at the bottom. That's going to give you a much nicer end product. Okay, now we're going to add in a little bit of our Japanese barbecue sauce and some garlic salt. The garlic salt is, I will say, it gives you a different kind of saltiness than like a soy sauce or the Japanese barbecue sauce. And I think it adds a little extra. So we're going to sprinkle it over just about, maybe not even a teaspoon, but just enough to kind of have to season up the rice. And then we're going to add more of our Japanese barbecue soy sauce. This is what makes the meal. You can get it pretty much everywhere now. Probably add another like tablespoon to it. And it's not as salty as soy sauce. So soy sauce is pretty salty. This is like a sauce that you can pour right over meat and eat on it. So it's not nearly as salty as soy sauce. It's got a sweetness to it, but it's like an umami, a sweet and savory. Okay, and now the beauty of it is we are just about done with dinner. Pretty quick. It's a great, easy 30-minute meal that you can make. Everything's homemade, but the flavors, especially if you're craving Chinese food, are perfect. Okay, let me go get a bowl to serve this up. Okay, so we're going to start out with our spam fried rice, which has spam in it, broccoli, carrots, mushrooms, a little bit of cabbage, and then 7 fried eggs. And we season this with our Japanese uh, barbecue sauce and a little bit of garlic salt, and just has overall a great little flavor and season to it. And then we are going to add on our pork mushroom or mushroom meatballs that we made with ground pork, ground bread, eggs, and then we seasoned with ginger and sesame oil and all that jazz. And then I love to top it with just a little bit of this barbecue, Japanese barbecue sauce, because that adds that savory extra flavor to it, which makes for a really delicious kind of spam fried rice bowl. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us here today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to do live cooking shows every single day, show you what we're making for our family, and hopefully teach you guys something along the way. Again, we do upload all of our videos to the link on our page. So if you ever want to recreate any of our recipes at home, you can just go to that link, search for what we cook. So this would be teriyaki meatballs and spam fried rice, and then cook along with me again at home. We also have a link to our Amazon storefront. So if you saw any of our cooking gadgets we use, like our 6-quart saute pan, our baking sheets, we have all of that on there if you want to check those out as well. But again, thank you so much for joining us here today. Don't forget to like and subscribe.